What's everyone drinking? I'm having some red wine. Anyone?
P&T.
White wine.
I'm having TT because I'm in the middle of dry friggin' January.
Oh,
I'm having water because I have a temperature of 102.
oh, get the fuck out!
And
Yeah,
when
I caught plain COVID or something. I was
We
fine last
waited
night.
24 hours for you, and it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I think I was telling Ron before you guys all got here, I would have been worthless last night, and I'm pretty much going to be worthless tonight too. I mean, I was able to do a little more research today, which is good. So I've got my rundown all planned out, and then I'm just going to let you guys riff, like take it and
Well, here,
run.
Bert,
So
I'll let you have one of these tonight, okay? Because I've got a whole jar.
you're going to
and
give me a yeah.
I don't have many. Since
Not
you
many to
don't have-
give.
You got to use them sparingly.
There's
I know,
one
right?
for you.
Yeah, I appreciate
There you
that.
go.
So generous.
100.
I'm Bert.
I'm Drew.
Oh, Ron.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the 100 Albums Podcast, where we discuss the ins, the outs, and the absurdities of a poster that depicts 100 seemingly random albums. And here we are at album number 58 as we continue going through these 100 albums that appear on a poster that Drew got a couple of years ago from his wife, Lisa. Back then, we first went through the whole poster, listened to each album, and then shared our thoughts and reactions with each other via video chat. Once we were all done, we thought it might be a fun project to turn into a podcast. And before we get into this week's album, we've got another special guest on the podcast with us this evening. Nate Walker is a musician, songwriter, producer, and friend from the Sylvan motherland. He says that Burt McBrayer is one cool motherfucker, and the 100 Albums Podcast should be worldwide already. Y'all kill it. Please visit theultraplane.com, TheUltraplain.com, Nate's new music project, to purchase the first single, End of the World. And give a follow on socials at The Ultraplane. Welcome, Nate. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Y'all rock. I'm really happy to be here. I can't wait to dig into said album.
And what album is that, guys?
Okay, computer.
Okay, computer.
Okay,
Yeah.
computer.
By the way,
It's,
what
okay,
a sign of respect from Bert that he read your web address properly. That's how you know he likes you, because normally
it's a sure sign.
he'll just like slap through it so no one can find it.
I've known him long, and I've known him long enough. He better not be still playing me as a fool, and better not be some kind of pretend game that he's got.
It's a
going
con.
on.
It's a long con. We met in like 1991.
I just can't shake that Nate guy.
That's right. Can't
Feel some strange obligation to him
Yes.
still.
yes, somehow.
Yeah.
But hey, let's get into this week's album, OK Computer by Radiohead. We'll start with the vibe check, guys. What are your first impressions of this album?
I mean, I love it, but that should probably surprise no one on this podcast.
True story.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan, have been since a couple years after it was released. I wasn't there, my ear wasn't there exactly when it was released. I wasn't so much aware of Radiohead, but maybe about a year and a half after I was introduced to it, and it just kind of tore my brain apart and really has been kind of a touchstone since.
You guys are going to fucking hate me.
No, we already do.
I have two vibes for this one. So my first one is much the same that Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds, Otis Redding, the Stones, and the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club all are relatively simple but rhythmically enticing. OK Computer is a complex mosaic of wonderful sounds that interweave to make a lovely soundscape. However, the soundscape it paints is that which puts me in a sad mood with few reprieves and rhythmically does not grab me. That's the first one. The second one is
Damn.
Ryan's an asshole.
So
And there's a reason for that comment too.
But wasn't
I gotta say, Ron,
that was
go ahead,
supposed to be track 13 on the album was, right? Ryan's
asshole.
after the
Traveler.
but I got to say, Ron, I mean, well read, well written. The last time that we had something like that, Drew prefaced it by saying, "I've prepared a statement." So
I forgot about that.
You know,
For what it's worth, without trying to be too wordy, I did prepare a statement as well on like a vibe check statement. So if there's space for it, I'm happy to present.
go for it. I can
No,
always
let's hear
edit.
it,
I
dude.
can take it out and post.
I'm still trying to get over this image of Ron with two vibes. That's how he started off the thing. He's like, I got two vibes, and guess where they are?
Hey, look, it took a little bit of something to get me through this album, all right?
Nate, what's your prepared statement?
All right, here we go. There are so many things that have to go right in order for an album like OK Computer to manifest. The right personnel, the right individual and collective talents and tools, the right influences, the right emotional and mental states, the proper willingness to be exposed, the right prior recording, touring, biz experiences already under belts, and the right synthesizing of all those. And then the right setting, the right producer, the right equipment, so on and so on. And last, the right moment in time and popular conscious to receive and amplify the message itself and the means by which it's been delivered. That any album of clear vision reaches the finish line and subsequently leaves a mark in any appreciable way is nothing short to me of miraculous. OK Computer presents as a razor-sharp vision delivered intelligently, brazenly, aggressively, and vulnerably at once. All 12 songs serve themselves and the larger picture brilliantly. A band and producer fully discovering and unapologetically exploiting their strengths and reveling in their fears and weaknesses. A true collective statement, a harrowing journey that bears out listen after listen.
Reclaiming my time. No,
It's a ton of words.
well
you know,
said. No. Well
No,
said.
that
Well
was
said.
wonderful.
I go on.
Yeah. Drew, how about you?
It's a beautiful record. I understand, Ron, your issues with it. I do, because I love music that puts me into that zone that you're mad about being in. So what do we call it? Sad boy?
Sad boy music, right?
But these guys do it so well. It is captivating to me. And I also, for some reason, when Radiohead came out, whenever it was, when did this album come out?
This album?
Okay.
Yeah.
Not too late. It was shortly after we were out of college when I started really figuring Radiohead out. And I still haven't taken a deep plunge, but God, everything they do is amazing to me and beautiful. And that's just how I feel. So this equates that vibe. Played it several times this week and the week before, just since I wanted to really get my head straight on this, but it's never a bad listen for me.
Yeah. I'm Ron, you're not alone. I think I'm more in your camp than I am in everyone else's. Mad respect, right? I absolutely respect Radiohead's artistry, Tom York's creativity, and skills. I mean, all the members of the band, for that matter. But yes, listening to this album puts you in a mood, right? And it's not a happy one. I'm not talking about happy stuff, you know what I mean? And that's fine. You don't always have to have happy things, but on the spectrum, musically, I gravitate toward and prefer brighter sounds, right? Ryan will ding me because he always jokes that, my Burt's Booze box is always too sugary. I prefer cocktails that lean toward the sweeter end of the spectrum rather than the sour, the bitter, the woody, whatever, right? And this is an example of that as well. So while I can certainly appreciate everything that's going on, and I did enjoy the most of the listens, there were times when I was listening to it and I got to the third track and I was like, nah, I'm not feeling this right now, and I got to turn it off. But I'm that way with Pearl Jam or whatever other music that I'm listening to. So
It's interesting.
I enjoyed it, but there's a but there. So
Bert, there's actually they were intentionally trying to be cheery and positive on a lot of these tracks.
yes,
This is as happy as they get.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I've never gravitated toward Radiohead as something that I own, right, or will buy. At least like physical media. Of course, I was streaming it for our listens and that kind of stuff. But I picked up on that.
One thing, though, I think to add to both of what you're saying that has not as much to do with either of your negative points on this record is the music isn't sad. Like, okay, so if they were trying to make it happy, but this was their palette, so to speak, of happiness. It's not sad and down, though. It's a serious, like,
it's somber,
like a block of and it's and I like that. Some you don't. Some people do. Some people. It's an amazing thing to talk about. Is that feeling of that in music, but it's not easily explainable. Like what it is that turns you on or off about music like that. When you try to compare it to a mood, when it's
But see, the weird thing is, though, man, like, I legit listened to this album 10, 12, maybe more times this week. I mean, it's not like I didn't give it its due. And I had the same feelings and emotions every time, except for tonight. Tonight I put it on, and I was like, damn, it's not that bad. So I don't know if my
it wore you
mood
down.
shifted or that happened or what. And the messed up thing is the level of appreciation I have is monumental. I mean, these guys made a really good sounding record as far as, painting a picture and sounds and everything. It's just not a picture that I look at. Like, going back a couple episodes, we had talked about art and, I'm not an abstract painting kind of guy. This is just a kind of art that just didn't grab me, but it's still really good for as much as it ain't my bag.
Well, and in terms of sincerity of emotion, I think Tom even talked about this with like Mojo Magazine is, he feels like this time in particular that so much of artistic emotion that was being portrayed was commercial and fake. And he said, I don't want to be a car commercial selling you an emotion because that's bullshit.
And you can see that later after the popularity of Creep, which we'll talk about. But yeah.
I think for me, what I'm always taken by with this album is that they are able to find pop convention in unconventional arrangements and instrumentation. They are able to make something palatable in a way that is by large part unconventional, and that they're able to do that over the course of 12 tracks, to me is, there are singable melodies, there are memorable hooks, there are, secondary melodies, there's counterpoints there, and all of these things go into a whole that's actually palatable on a popular scale. And that is so deeply difficult to do. And not that they were necessarily shooting for that, but they got there. And that they got there is so very impressive to me. That something like that, which can be by all measures a challenging listen, that any of it became palatable to any kind of larger part of the population is I'm blown away that they were able to do that.
And those same conventions. I mean, this is still the time where they had featured guitar solos, which after this really goes to the wayside. So even that part of the kind of rock and roll stereotype culture is in this album, and they're damn good guitar solos, I think.
Yeah, you get no No arguments for me, man.
Well, bring us up to speed.
I was going
man.
to say,
Tell us
let's
about Radiohead.
Yeah, let's talk about the background a little bit. Formed in 1985 in Abingdon, Oxfordshire, England. The original members met at Abingdon School. Tom York, vocals, guitar, piano. Johnny Greenwood, lead guitar and keyboards. Ed O'Brien, guitar, backing vocals. Colin Greenwood, bass, and Philip Selway on drums. They were initially called On a Friday. They named their band after the day they would get together to rehearse. They changed their name to Radiohead in 1991, which is taken from a song by the Talking Heads called Radiohead. They signed to EMI Parlophone in 1992, and they released Drill, their debut EP, in May of that year. It was only 4 songs. It really didn't get much attention until they released their first full album, Pablo Honey, the following year, 1993. That album featured the hit single Creep.
I wish I was special. You're so fucking special. But I'm a creep.
Which brought international attention. They had not planned on releasing Creep as a single. They recorded it at the suggestion of the producers of that album, Sean Slade and Paul Coldery. They took elements from the 1972 song The Air That I Breathe by Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood. Following legal action, Hammond and Hazelwood were credited as co-writers on Creep. Coldery, the producer, convinced EMI to release Creep as a single, and it was initially unsuccessful, but eventually became popular on American alternative rock radio. EMI pressured Radiohead to match that success, as record labels are wont to do, which created tension during the recording of their second album. On that album, The Bends, which is widely acclaimed for emotional depth and layered guitar work, kind of what Ryan was talking about, it established Radiohead as a major alternative rock band. But Fake Plastic Trees was the lead single from that album. Displaying the departure from Creep, very different sound than what they were doing on Pablo Honey. So, OK Computer came out in 1997. It's a landmark album, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. After that, you had Kid A in 2000 and Amnesiac in 2001, and this is where Radiohead was embracing electronic music, ambient textures, jazz, krautrock. Initially, it was divisive, but later celebrated as groundbreaking records. Hail to the Thief came out in 2003, combined rock and electronic elements with more political themes. In Rainbows in 2007 was released independently with a pay-what-you-want digital model, praised for its warmth, accessibility, and innovative release strategy. King of the Lambs came out in 2011. That was more rhythm-focused, loop-driven, experimentation. Moon-Shaped Pool came out in 2016. It's more orchestral, introspective, centered on loss and transformation. So what's the legacy and influence of Radiohead? They've been known for their constant reinvention and resistance to industry norms. They've been influential across rock, electronic, and experimental music. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019, and they've been celebrated for their artistic integrity, innovation, and emotional depth. So let's talk about OK Computer. This is the third studio album by Radiohead, released on May 21st, 1997. With their producer, Nigel Godrich, Radiohead recorded most of OK Computer in their rehearsal space in Oxfordshire and the historic mansion of St. Catherine's Court in Bath in 1996 and early 1997. They distanced themselves on this album from the guitar-centered, lyrically introspective style of their previous album, The Bends. OK Computer's abstract lyrics, densely layered sound, and eclectic influences laid the groundwork for Radiohead's later, more experimental work, and it also exhausted them, touring and the like. In terms of record sales, OK Computer is Radiohead's best-selling album. Top 5 for Radiohead. Kid A from 2000 was just under 2.5 million. Amnesiac from 2001 was just over 2.5 million. Hail to the Thief from 2003 was just under 2.6 million. The Bends from 1995 was just under 2.7 million. And then OK Computer from 1997 blew them all the way at almost 5.8 million albums sold. In terms of the Billboard album charts, I was kind of surprised to see that even though OK Computer is their best-selling album, it did not perform on the charts the way that In Rainbows did. It went to number 1 and stayed there. It was on the chart for 53 weeks. Kid A went to number 1, and it was on the chart for 28 weeks. Amnesiac went to number 2. A Moon-Shaped Pool went to number 3. King of the Lambs went to number 3. Hail to the Thief went to number 3. Okay,
King of Limbs.
King of Limbs. I'm sorry. OK Computer peaked at number 21. It was on the chart for 89 weeks, which is really good, but it only peaked at number 1. So despite its really strong record sales, it didn't chart that high. I was kind of surprised by that. So that's my rundown, guys. That's all the research that I had in the short time I had to do that this week. What else do folks want to add?
I was kind of excited about.
It's a King of the Lambs, by the way, is a speed metal band.
Okay,
and that's what it sounds like to me, and it's like King of the Lambs and their new album Blood of the Lamb or something like.
So I actually received some Radiohead books as gifts about 18 years ago, and I never read them. I just wasn't interested in reading about this band that I felt like I knew a lot about. I read them for tonight's podcast, so it was a nice excuse to break them out. And it actually gave me some pretty good insight to the creation of this album in particular. As Bert mentioned, creating the Bends was a real struggle for them, and they had a lot of infighting in the studio. And I think just generally the studio, which after the Bends, they kind of rejected traditional studio models entirely. To the point where I think In Rainbows, they didn't record together almost at all. But in this case, they were on tour coming up with tunes for this with REM and Soul Asylum and Alanis Morissette, and Capitol Records is just licking their chops because they're testing, new material in front of these huge audiences, and they're like, oh man, they have all these like super palatable crowd pleasers. Their next album is going to be amazing. And in the meantime, they're like, we don't want to record this way anymore. I miss the old days of just passing the 4-track around and creating stuff, which takes us to where they recorded in Jane Seymour's 15th Century House, by the way, where Johnny was quoted in saying, it's really nice because if you get bored, you just go outside and play croquet for a while and there's no one to tell you can't, which is kind of nice. What a nice image. How pleasant for making an album. Very much how all of us make albums. But they were, obviously very prepared for this. No surprises. Is basically the first take that they just recorded that straight. They did a couple of tweaks on it. Dang. And that's the first thing they laid down. It kind of gave them a sense of confidence that they're in the right place to record this album.
Yeah.
The working title of this when they were doing it was called A Bad Song with a Good Title. And because they're in the studio and just being goofballs, that when they would talk to each other over like the mics and into their headphones and stuff, they'd be like, "Okay, computer, I will do that." And so it's
I am a robot.
Yeah, and so that's where the title comes from of
That's
OK
awesome.
Computer. As I'm sure you guys were talking about influence, you can really hear it here, but heavy in rotation for them in terms of listening and what they've identified as being big parts of this album are "Bitches Brew" by Miles Davis. and the soundtracks of Ennio Morricone. And then the music of the band Can.
Oh.
Also, I think because of some of the interviews I read from Johnny Greenwood, this is his expression of a lot of what he pulled from Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I can see that.
Drips.
And I think it can't be ignored how much they took from the last two albums of Talk Talk.
I can't speak to that, but I can hear you speaking to that.
Well, I speak of the truth. Like, if you look at the album Laughing Stock, okay, if you put on the track New Grass... It basically sounds like it should be a Radiohead song, except it was, I think, was that 1991 or 92? But that whole aesthetic of this sort of free wash of layers and letting the instruments interact with the voice in very different ways and exploring harmonies in different ways, to me, really, they owe so much to Talk Talk in that regard.
That's cool, because that's a huge piece that I wanted to chat about this album in particular.
Was Talk Talk?
No, the soundscape creation and playing with melodies and chords and sounds, etc.
So one of the other things that I thought was fascinating about what I learned from this album, because I didn't know, the first single they released from this album was Paranoid Android. That is
that's ballsy.
That is a choice.
Yeah,
because it's a long cut.
Yeah.
It's an epic with many different moods, many different time signatures, many different tempi. And if I'm being honest, it's one of those tracks that for me has aged the worst, or so I thought, just because there are some elements of that song that I find a little bit too emo-y. But I researched that song in particular. This album cut is the slimmed down version. This is actually a song that they were doing almost as a parody. They're making jokes. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes about an experience that Tom had in a bar where a woman had a drink spilled on her Gucci purse, and he's kind of teasing about that. And when they would perform this, when they were working on it live before it got recorded, it would be like 13 minutes long. They would bring out the whole kitchen sink, whatever they had. They would be like, oh, grab the glockenspiel. We're going to add a glockenspiel section. They would just make it into this ridiculous, over-the-top epic, which gave me a whole new appreciation of the song, because then to take that and truncate it into how concise it still delivers at 7.5 minutes is pretty amazing. So
the reason I say fuck Ryan about this album is
sorry.
Wait, let me explain.
It's just like
no. I was gonna say the segue's there, but no. Like Ryan sent me a text message. It was like, "Hey, check out their effects," because I always wanted to know how they made some of these sounds, and so I did. And no shit, other than Creep, I've never listened to Radiohead. I've never listened to this album, and so I dove into their gear, and holy shit, I was in a gear rabbit hole for 3 hours. These guys use everything, and they use it well. I mean, we all know I play guitar and I have more fucking pedals than I'll ever goddamn need. But these guys, I saw pictures of their pedal boards, and I'm talking like 5 solid feet of floor real estate. They got everything. Their delay, reverb, like obsessed. It's really, really cool. And the sounds they got out of this stuff, of all this stuff they used, is really, really cool. I mean, really, really cool. And like the stuff they used, I was thinking, holy shit, you know, they got an envelope filter going to get this sound, and it's actually, you know, a Mutron Matador. You know, some pedals that weren't made years ago that, thank you, Ryan, I now need to go find a clone that costs $300, you dick. I wouldn't have known about this had you not been like, hey, Ron, check the gear out.
All right, so in full disclosure, I knew, Ron, that this album would not be your favorite listen, and I also knew about their gear. So I wanted you to have some outlet, because I've seen them live a number of times, and I've seen the crap they pull out on the stage. I mean, I will never forget, I was right in front of the pit. It was just me and the security guard and then Radiohead. And Johnny Greenwood is sitting up there with an Owens Martineau, a full analog synthesizer where he's literally pulling switches back and forth. You know what I mean? Like there's always a telephone operator while playing guitar at the same time. And I'm like, what is this witchcraft? You know, and he's just one piece of the puzzle that makes the song happen.
It was, and as much as I joke, I do thank you for being like, hey, check this shit out, because it is really, really cool. I can't imagine doing some of this shit live. I read articles and saw videos where like they get down on the floor and twist knobs to get certain sounds. So it's not like they're just hitting shit and going on and off. No, they're turning knobs and shaping sounds on the fly. And holy shit, I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah, I mean, to get that
it so well,
to get that feedback loop that ends a couple tunes on this record alone. I mean, you got to produce that live, and you got to know how to tweak those knobs to get it.
I think the things that you're speaking of, and I, humbly say, like the things that you're speaking of, to me, everything points in the same direction, which is to do all of these things and somehow synthesize them onto tape. And I don't mean tape necessarily like analog tape, but to have them recorded and to make structure of them that in some way, shape, or form means something and does something and moves people and, exists by itself is really, it's a unicorn type of situation. Like these situations they're not easy to come by. And
they're not easy to recreate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but to be able to, like, when you're on a stage and you're playing live, you can kind of have free reign depending on the kind of music that you play, depending on the audience, depending on, how willing people are to listen to you go on and on with your effects and do your things and whatever. If you're into the jamming thing or if you're an experimental band like Radiohead, that their audience allows for them to do that. When you're on stage, it's kind of, there's a certain freedom to explore. But to take that freedom of exploration and put it into kind of the pressure cooker of capturing it and putting it into some kind of form is, to me, I'm always seeing it from the inside out, because I involve myself I am involved in the music creation process on a daily basis. And every step of the way is a potential for it to go wrong. And in order for all of those things and effects and lyrics and feelings to get put into a box for each song, and for them to be able to capture some kind of something, to me is, I again, like, especially something experimental that then becomes something that actually holds pop convention. I think it's really amazing. And
it's a rarity for sure.
To me, it's a rarity. It's a kind of a confluence of things that you don't see often. And I think OK Computer was kind of it's kind of a diamond in the rough at a time when you were at post grunge. Like I think it was all Nickelbacky and all that.
Thank
kind of
God
stuff.
Radiohead was there then.
Right. And again, like everyone has their own time and space. They're Nickelback. They're making tons of money. I'm not them. I'm not making tons of money off of the post grunge sound, and everything has its own time and space. But, they put together something at a particular time that was, there was an elevated quality to it. And it's, to me, really impressive, the tools that they, like, it was a really ballsy move. A really ballsy move in order for, because they had the bends, and the bends had kind of anthemic qualities to it, and like straight ahead kind of songwriting and big hooks and soaring
and
melodies
hit videos too.
And hit MTV. Videos. Yep. What was it?
High and Dry and Street Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had that, and then they're like, we found our man with Nigel, right? And they were like, because I don't know if do you know I'm going all over the place here. Do you know there's so much I feel like I want to talk about. Do you know their Street Spirit was made into an EP, like the single? There was an EP that Street Spirit was put out, and there were, I think, 3 other songs on it or 4 other songs on it. And it was kind of the proving ground for Godrich as producer. Like he produced, in quotes, a couple songs on the Bends. But on this EP, he was really front seat producer. And there's a track on there called Talk Show Host.
You want me? Fucking come and find me. I'll be waiting with a gun and a pack of sandwiches.
And Tom York is kind of on record saying, like, Talk Show Host is kind of the moment. And like that kind of was the jumping off point of the next thing for them. I mean, I could.
No, I love that song. And I know we'll get to this, Bert, so I apologize. But obviously, in terms of poster secrets
of the poster,
this is an album where the band really changed direction.
Yeah.
And what's great is, we did an episode a couple weeks ago about Miles Davis, similar topic, where he just changed direction. And just like that, the album that follows this changes a complete direction again. They're just like, yeah, now what's next, So anyway, I know we'll get into that on the good and the bad and the ugly. So
the road to success is not straight.
Well, this might be a good
I was just
interruption moment for a sponsor. I'm actually kind of alarmed. I don't know how to say this, but I got kind of a cryptic email for a sponsor this week, and we never know what we're going to get. So this episode of 100 Albums Podcast has been made possible by the generous support of Greenwood's fake plastic trees, plants that are guaranteed not to let down. And I guess they sent us an audio. Is that right, Bert?
That's right. I've got it here.
Greenwood's fake plastic trees. Everything in its right place. Everything already dead. No surprises. No roots. No emotional labor. Concerned, but powerless. An empowered and informed member of society. Will not cry in public, less chance of illness. More durable, more consistent. No watering, no sunlight, no guilt. Designed to look alive. Engineered to feel nothing. Ideal for modern living spaces. Apartments, offices. Emotional avoidance. Shot of plant in back seat. Won't wilt under pressure, won't disappoint you, won't die slowly while you're at work. Always green, always present, never growing. Greenwood's fake plastic trees.
Man,
That was
Interesting.
fantastic.
that is.
I want to buy one of those.
That was a very appropriate commercial for tonight's
I
episode.
was just going to say
Right?
it's almost
How
like
weird
it was
that
planned.
came in.
Virtuosic stylophone playing in the background as well. That was awesome.
That's
interesting.
was that supposed to be the 14th song on the album?
I think, yeah.
It would fit.
Well, they were, looking at other avenues for money, I guess. I don't know. They had that laying around. Well, we got it. Anyway, folks, big thanks to Greenwood's fake plastic trees. They are sold wherever you can also buy an iron lung. And I'm told that in terms of colors, you can get them in rainbows. So
They're firing on all cylinders. I love it.
yeah, well, I mean, my understanding is those fake plastic trees are the kings of lambs.
All right.
Hey, before we go into another section,
Sure, Drew.
fact checking this against Ryan and Nate, who have some more legwork done on history here. I saw a meme the other day, and it's vaguely familiar to me. If you remember back in '97, we're looking at LimeWire downloading rife with our world, and so people that are releasing albums fighting against that free taking of their work. And so apparently this says that Radiohead released this record on a Walkman type device. Now you can look that up if you don't know what it is for sake of time on the album on the podcast here, but it came in a Walkman in a cassette tape form. I have a picture of it here, and that if you opened it up, it would ruin the tape, so you couldn't reproduce it. Have you guys heard this?
That is new to me.
I had seen something about that in some of the research. I decided not to go down that path, but I did see something about how this album was marketed in a very unique way, and that was part of that.
It's interesting because they essentially, like you said, what was it in Rainbows? It was out for pay what you want, including nothing.
Right.
But before that, when it was really before musicians realized the monster that downloading was, they were fighting it. So there could be it could be fake, it could be some kind of weird thing, but very interesting, all the same.
The album, I mean, in terms of releases that I was a part of, the CD, which was probably its major selling point at that time in 1997, was a great way to experience the album, because if you were a person like me who fell in love with it and put it on repeat, you had that final cymbal hit at the end of The Tourist, and it blends right back into Airbag, and you feel like you are on a cycle. It's just it's seamless.
Yep. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
But the original vinyl release, if you had one of those, it was actually a 2-record set, and the record sides were named Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you have it on vinyl?
I don't have that version, but I have the 10-inch one that came out in the early aughts, and then I have the new version with the bonus tracks, the OK Not OK.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess I have two. Yeah. I have the CD and 2 vinyl copies.
I don't have it on vinyl. Is it a worthwhile listen on vinyl?
It is, even though it's an album that was produced with a lot of electronic elements. Radiohead has the kind of money to make sure that the analog version of it sounds pretty damn good.
Because it's got to be mastered for vinyl, of course. Yeah, but I'm curious. I mean, I have the Bends on vinyl, and that's a great listen for itself. But
so the only of their albums I don't have on vinyl is Pablo Honey, and I probably will never buy that. It's never an album that attached itself to me. So,
what's interesting about my my relationship with the sound of Radiohead is I never owned Pablo Honey. I came in at OK Computer. I went back to the Bends, and frankly, I didn't follow them past OK Computer. They're a band that kind of exists in a short, time and space for me. And there was a sound that they had that I connected with. And then they continued to explore other places that I didn't necessarily connect with. So OK Computer and the Bends, but, especially this album is kind of its own, and it's a wonderful thing about that band and that project is that they're willing to kind of leave their former iterations behind, try something else and do it whole hog. And I really appreciate that and respect them about it. But that I like OK Computer so much is not some sign of heightened fandom or anything. I didn't necessarily, I just didn't follow them down the rest of their journey. So
well, I think I'm actually much like you because this wasn't an album that I was anticipating. I actually joined the band's, my interest got piqued at Kid A, which is following this. And I worked my way backwards, much like you. And then I didn't start following them, I guess, real time until Hail to the Thief. And then I was part of all of those releases because at that point I was hooked on what the heck. I had no idea what they were going to do next, so I had to know.
Yeah. No, I think they're a band that has allowed themselves to be nimble and kind of go with, their internal, winds of change. And I really respect that about them. And they, that's a tough thing to pull off too. Like they're a band that kind of impresses at every turn just because they're willing to go there, wherever there is,
And I'm also willing to admit that they are, like everything on this poster and like every kind of music, a very particular flavor. One of my great friends who's also a listener of the podcast does not like this band and has attributed that to Tom York, who he says is basically the Mariah Carey of rock and roll music.
No.
And I mean, he's in some ways he's not wrong.
What's the rationale there? I'm curious about that definition.
Well, we'll have to have him on, won't we?
What's wrong with Mariah Carey?
I think it's
Drew's
the idea
still listening
that
to the Christmas album, aren't you, Drew?
He really enjoys singing high and sometimes singing melodies that aren't melodies. And I think, we've talked about this a lot with the lead singer of the band is sometimes just that is it. You're either okay with that voice and the person that is bringing you the humanity of the music in the moment, or you're not, right? All the way back to when we were on, the Eagles, or I feel like every episode this comes up,
Yeah.
But if you can't change that. That's every voice is different,
Yeah.
Some people don't like Tom Waits, so
but it's
crazy.
especially with this guy, voice quality. I don't know. I think this is beyond that argument. I think I understand your friend's point, not necessarily the Mariah Carey reference directly, but obviously he didn't mean that directly. But I think that's what people get turned off to by guys like Tom York, because they're so courageous and confident in what they're not confident in that they're going to make a song that the world's going to love. They're confident in they're going to make their art the way they want to, and it's going to be this way. And he puts it out on the table, and you can hear it in his voice. Doesn't sing pretty all the time.
No.
Sometimes he sings gorgeous. He never sings bad to me, though.
But you're right. He is all in.
Yeah, and I think people are uncomfortable with that. And I think that's what is tricky about Radiohead and bands like that. And Bjork is another example.
Radiohead, even at their most anthemic, isn't anthemic in the same ways as, say, what we listen to in Slippery When Wet. This is a very different kind of artwork in terms of the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to do that, you have to be willing to have half of the world or more say, it's too much for me, I don't want it.
You suck.
Yeah. And a lot of people can't go that far.
I think that's actually, Drew, that is a great way to bring us into the next segment of this podcast.
Well, Nate was going to say something. And I think Ron was going to say something before we move on. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm very much in agreement. I just I love the I love how the points being made. Drew makes such a good point in terms of, as an artist, a recording artist, I think the most difficult thing is to be able to shut off the voices judging yourself and the external voices judging you. And to be able to be confident enough to be your full self is the biggest win of any artist. Whether you like them or not, doesn't matter. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is if you get your full self out there into the world, you win, period. Whether someone likes it or not. And yeah, sure, Tom York, some of the things he does, I'm enamored of. Some of the things he does, I don't connect with. That's fine. But a person like that is, 100% seemingly, I don't know him, but 100% themselves and presenting as such. And it's huge. I mean,
I've struggled with, as a composer, that has always been my biggest struggle is to, how do you present your art in a way where you're not hiding behind things? How do you really bravely show what you're trying to say? And it's hard because there's so many opportunities to not do that.
Well, we were talking in the Miles Davis episode, when we were talking about soloing, how Miles Davis was not from the bebop school. He was more lyrical and that kind of stuff, and would also use space. And Ryan, I think you had said in that conversation that all too often people, when they're soloing, whether it's trumpet, whether it's guitar or whatever, I got to throw as much onto the table as I can, and sometimes it's just great to leave a little bit of space, and that takes that kind of courage. And
it is, it's a different kind of courage for sure.
Yeah.
Hey gang, Bert here. As you can see, this one went really long. So as we've done in the past, we're going to make this episode a two-parter. Please tune in next week for the thrilling conclusion of our OK Computer conversation. In the meantime, please give Nate's new project, The Ultraplane, a listen at theultraplane.com. As always, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Later, turkeys.
So I'll just say really quickly, when we first started this merry-go-round in July of
2021, it feels like.
2001. When we first started this thing, we had started to do some recordings, and we had some things in the can and that kind of stuff. And every August, Melissa and I travel down to see Nate and his family, and we go to Drum Corps International's Allentown competition at the Fightin' Canary Stadium in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And
always a blast.
At the time, I was like, "Hey, man, so we're doing this thing. Do you have any ideas? And we'd love to have you as a guest or whatever." And so this has been a long time in the making, partially due to the fact that I had forgotten I forget which album it was, Nate, that you had first picked off the list, and I was like, "Oh shit, we already did that. I forgot."
I wanted to do What's Going On With You. That's what I wanted.
I told
you were going to do Dizzy Rascal with us.
I also wanted to do Dizzy Rascal. Rascal, that's a favorite.
Did you listen to that episode? That was I did. That was a one of those episodes. It was like, so was Frank Ocean, for that matter. If you listened to,
I did not get a chance to listen to Frank.
I think that's we're biased, but so. Formed in 1985 in Abingdon, Oxfordshire, England. I say. I'll take that out. The original members.
I think for me, I'm amazed at the Jesus. For the love of God.
All right, seriously, Nate.
It's the angels are waiting with bated breath to hear your opinions. Nate.
I love it. Nate, we already respect you. You're here as a guest. You don't need to emphasize every point with choir sounds.
You guys, you saw through me.